Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session about getting institution aggregators together, integrating the research information ecosystem to support open access and enhance institutional knowledge transfer. My name is Bushra Farhan. I'm a customer consultant at Elsewhere, and there are a couple of housekeeping items that we want to address.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. I'm Annie Rapp, Head of Collections and Research Services at Syracuse University. And the two things we wanted to remind you is that we'd ask you to use the mic when we ask questions. We don't have one in the room, so we are going to make an attempt to repeat your questions. If you're wondering why we're doing that, it's to make sure everybody can hear and it's part of the recording. And then their second issue of housekeeping is that we wanted to remind you about the Charleston Conference Code of Conduct, and that as a participant in this session, you are to abide by the Code of Conduct that the conference has provided. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Ramsden. I work at Montclair State University in New Jersey, and thank you for attending our session today. Appreciate it.
So I just want to kick things off with a really quick overview about what this session is all about. So it's really about knowing and learning from our panelists how they make use of their research information management systems and institutional repositories at their respective institutions, particularly addressing how it supports open access workflows and how it enables the metadata reuse. And each of them have the RIM system Pure and the Institutional Repository Digital Commons. So it's exploring, how they are currently set up at the institutes, how the current integration works, what they like to see in the future in terms of further integrations and how that can support potential outcomes of RIM systems and institutional repositories, and making sure that they get that value and return on investment. And also, of course, making sure that the researchers and administrators, as they interact with these systems, how that can reduce burdens as they go about using the systems. So that's briefly what this session is about, and I'd like to turn it over to Amila.
Great, thank you so much, Bushra. So, as I said, I'm the Head of Collections and Research Services at Syracuse University Libraries. I lead a department of 18 librarians organized into 4 teams. And all that work that is done across those 4 teams is centered on our relationships and our liaison and outreach work that we do. The 4 teams in my department are instruction, digital and open scholarship, collection development, and research impact, and those will become important as I sort of talk about how our 2 tools are managed. So the digital and open scholarship team has both collection development and outreach responsibility for our institutional repository, but not technical aspects of administering it. Our research impact team administers Pure along with our Office of Research. So if you're not familiar with Syracuse University, we're a private R1 and research institution. We have about 15,000 undergraduate students, 5,000 graduate students, actually a little bit more this year. More people came than we intended. And we achieved R1 Carnegie classification status in 2015, and that was a significant year in some of our story for how and why we have at least the Pure system. We are currently revisiting our academic strategic plan under a new provost and new vice president for research leadership, and there's a very strong threshold of that academic strategic plan that will be focused on research and creative excellence. So we are not a huge STEM institution, which also plays into some of our issues with these 2 tools that we're looking at today. Next slide, please. This is our institutional repository. This is our digital commons-based tool. We call it Surface. At Syracuse University, the face of Syracuse University Research. It launched in 2010, and this includes scholarly articles, books, journals, dissertations, theses, conference proceedings, videos, and includes content. We're really trying to focus this tool on being the home of the content. And most of that content is deposited by authors themselves, by individual scholars, by research center administrators, things like that. So we're really focused mostly on self-submission as the path to submitting into our institutional repository. And we're trying really hard not to include there's a word for it, which I'm blanking on because I'm not involved in the metadata on it, but sort of pointer records. We're trying to really not include those in our institutional repository anymore. We do have some legacy ones that live there from before having two systems, and we haven't gotten around to addressing that. But if something is in Surface, we're really hoping that the content is there and not pointing to the content living elsewhere. This is managed by committee from two different departments within the library. So as mentioned, my department contribution is the collection development policies for it, the outreach around it, actually working with authors, learning how to use it, learning what they might and might not be able to put into the institutional repository. Our Department of Digital Stewardship, is the other department that manages our institutional repository in the library. So they're more of the technical side of managing the institutional repository, and they also have responsibility for managing our digital collections platform. So they work with multiple different types of content when we're the ones having a platform and putting the content out there in the world. Both of those departments are inside the library at my organization, so they benefit from library IT when that's needed. Thank you. Next slide. And then we also have Pure. So Pure is our experts at Syracuse is how we've locally branded it. It's our RIM system. It was implemented in 2016 in response to our sort of newly achieved Research 1 classification. There was some initial goals for why we adopted Pure, which are no longer our current goals for maintaining it. Now we're using it for showcasing expertise and finding potential collaborators. We have lots of faculty and some staff in it, but not all faculty are profiled in our research information management system. And we're trying very hard to not include full text content here. This is supposed to be sort of the system that shows what all was done and that it might live in other places. This system is jointly administered with our Office of Research. So we have regular meetings between my department members who are involved in this and our Office of Research staff, sometimes with Bushra as well, to make improvements and updates about this particular system. And I will say that our implementation of this system really suffers from lack of sort of dedicated staff and lack of IT ownership because it's administered between two units on the campus. It's also very easy for both units to say it's the responsibility of the other unit to be the IT administrative home to that, which some of the issues that I'll probably get to are based in that, but just sharing that for sort of setting up for some of the things that we are grappling with.
So welcome again, everybody. I am Karen Ramsden. I'm a research and project specialist at Montclair State University. I'm also the digital commons coordinator and the lead administrator for the Pure system. I've been in higher education for over 20 years, been on a lot of university committees. I come from more the administrative side, so I'm not a librarian by trade. But I do serve a lot of functions in the library, and I do a lot of research and special projects. And I'm very interested also in user design studies and CX design. I feel that's really important in libraries also going forward, especially with these research platforms. Finding out what your users need, what your stakeholders need, there's so much involved with it. And administering it, that's something that, has become of great interest to me as well. So Montclair State, we are in New Jersey, in North Jersey, not too far from New York City. And we were opened up in 1908 with 187 students, and now we have over 21,000. And we are growing and growing and growing. Over 300 majors, minors, certificate programs. We're in R2. We became an R2 a few years ago, so that's brought a lot of challenges as well, with staffing and making sure we have the right ecosystem in place in research, and that we're part of it in the library. And we also are designated as a public research university. And similar to Andy's situation, research is part of our strategic plan that we did a couple of years ago, but now we have a new president, a new provost, a new dean of the library, and new vice provost for research. Our vice provost for research has been there a while. She's acting as an interim. So as you know, there's always challenges with new staffing to make sure that they're on board and they understand what's going on and what they're doing as well. So our systems, Digital Commons, we started that back in 2018 and went public. So that was our first system. That's really our institutional repository. It's open to everyone in the university, whether you're staff, faculty, administrators. If you're doing scholarly work, we invite you to be on it. And it's for all of our current faculty and staff. But we do, if you retire in your faculty or staff, or faculty maritime, we don't take your information down, we leave it there, because it is part of the university's, archives. We have archival works, we have theses, dissertations, we're really pushing journals now big time with our faculty as well. We have really unique conferences and events on it, which is something that, we're really trying to grow, and we do special projects with students that we put up there. So we're kind of really like the whole realm of scholarly information, not just your journals or your research papers. It's self-archived, the model, and as we all know, we have institutional repositories. Self-archiving is a bit challenging at times. The buy-in is there, it's the actual continuation of using it that kind of is always a little difficult. So we do mediated deposit, which is something that our faculty and our staff, it really helps them out with keeping them on board and using it. It is a service of the library, we have a team behind it, so there's a team of librarians who, we look at the content. So if you do upload something, we take a look at it, make sure it's in the right spot, right metadata, we're not the paper police and say, oh no, this is wrong, we want to make sure that it's just going to the right areas. And, it's a team effort, and like I said, service of the library, and it's something that, we really has brought us into the research ecosystem in our library. We go out there and I do a lot of outreach with it, I try to get the faculty buy-in with it, and, having both platforms is always, as we know, a little bit challenging, trying to market them, but we really feel like this one is our home for everything, so everyone is included, no matter what discipline you are. Now, our Pure system, which is Research with Montclair State University, that's our RIM platform. And that came out of our state collaborative, which Bush was going to speak on a little bit later. But we're one of the 5 schools that participate in it. And so, of course, with that platform, that's overseen by our Vice Provost for Research. I do everything for it. There's no self-archiving. It's all me. So, and of course, Scopus, feed in there, which makes it very easy to do. But as far as creating profiles and populating that, that's me. Looking at the faculty that should go in there, that's also what I do with that as well. It's currently only our STEM, and as we like to say at Montclair, our STEM-related faculty. So we put them up there, and we're kind of stuck with a license of about 400 and change, so we can't really go over that. So it's only our current faculty, and they have to be tenure track. And they could also be administrators who are faculty members as well, have done further research. And that one is, it's a great platform, I think, more for collaboration if you wanted, for our faculty to look outside and see what other researchers are doing and be invited in. Where our institutional repository is really, because there's full text downloads in that one, it's great for students. It's great for faculty, to look and if you want to download papers, of course, the greater good of the world, right? Somebody can come and download our papers. Whereas I think the Pure system, we try to market that a little bit more that, hey, this is our researchers in the state of New Jersey. This is the collaborations that we're doing, and this is where, you can seek out faculty. We have, the SDGs for the UN on there. If you want to maybe target a certain faculty member and collaborate with them, that's a better platform for that. And it's only the metadata only records. We don't have full text downloads on it.
So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background about Research with New Jersey, as Karen mentioned. So Research with New Jersey was launched in 2018, and the goal really was to promote scientific collaborations, both domestically or internally, but also internationally. So that would then serve as a means for new leading research and potentially new collaborations across the globe. And as part of the Research with New Jersey, currently there are 5 institutions. So there's Global University, Rutgers University, NGIT, Princeton, of course, Montclair State University. And it's under the purview of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, or in other words, NJEDA. And as part of this statewide collaboration, the university, that's Montclair State University, was given the option to have their own research portal, which they have now branded as Research with Montclair. And it basically has all kinds of research content type. So it's basically a research portal with research outputs, projects or grants, facilities and equipment, of course the persons and more. And it's powered by the Pure platform, and Pure is LCS Research Information Management System. So that's the underlying technology that powers the portal. So I want to ask our panelists a question now that we've shared how they have their women IR at the respective institutions. In your opinion, what's the value and power of having a bidirectional relationship between the IR and the system? And would you like to go first?
Sure, yeah. So in my opinion, the biggest value to having this bidirectional relationship for the data to move between the systems is to reduce duplication of work from both researchers and the library staff. We have end users in the library who are more comfortable using Pure. We have end users who are more comfortable using our institutional repository. They may have sort of more philosophical goals of including things in our institutional repository to share their work broadly, to make it available open access. We need to be able to capture that seamlessly into our research information management system. We have other data that's coming in automatically into our research information management system, and to get that good metadata as opposed to some of our perhaps not as great self-added metadata from our institutional repository, that's what we see as sort of the best case scenario for this bidirectional data.
You did note everything you just said as well for us, but also the marketing and promotion aspect is really huge for us. As an R2 and a public research university who is really, we're all fighting for dollars out there. We're fighting for recognition of what our researchers do. It doesn't hurt to have two platforms. I mean, it's not always easy managing them, but with the Pure platform, we're really showcasing our STEM and STEM-related faculty too, which is very important for our professors that are out there in the field doing the work.
So at the moment, neither of the institutions really have an open access policy or mandate, right? So how is having these two systems helping your institution determine how open you are?
Okay. So this is a topic I am thinking a ton about, because while we do not have an institution or an open access policy right now, we are probably on the verge of having one. In the spring of 2020, our university senate passed a recommendation to have an open access policy, and then things got a little wild in the spring of 2020 on university campuses, and our priorities shifted a little bit, and then we had a huge change in leadership, like just about every higher ed institution's had in the last 2 years. So that's sort of everybody's story for why things changed. And but we really our current vice president for research, or yours is called something else, now I'm getting them mixed up, was a faculty member in the physics department who actually led the charge on bringing forth our open access policy, and now he's recently been appointed our vice president of research on campus, and so it is top on his priority to bring this back. Policies of this sort have to be enacted by the provost at my institution. Our university senate is just a recommending body, so that's sort of why it didn't happen upon that vote. But in the years since we drafted the university policy, so now the library has been tasked with okay, make this work. We've all passed the policy, we're getting ready to pass the policy, do this, library, how's it gonna happen? And so as we've been reviewing this policy, a lot has changed in open access, even just in the years since we drafted this. The policy that we drafted was really a policy focused on institutional repository deposit. And since 2020, we've signed 4 read and publish agreements. We have we subscribe to open journals. We are working with organizations to publish our own open access journals, some of them in Digital Commons, some in other platforms on our campus. And so even in the years since 3 years ago, the amount of open access publishing that's already happening on our campus is changed dramatically. And so we're looking at actually adopting this, or changing this policy to not just be a policy about institutional repository deposit, but really truly an open publishing policy. So if you published in PLOS, if you published using one of our transformative agreements, if you deposited in archive, if you deposited humanities comments, or you deposited it in our institutional repository. You've made your work open, the world can access what you've done here at Syracuse, therefore you've met our policy. So how does this work with all of our systems? And the answer is 3 years ago, we assumed digital commons was going to be the center of our institutional repository. It was going to be our open access policy. It's going to be what we were going to use to do it. In these 3 years, we're seeing that that's not so much the case. We're really now envisioning that digital commons is going to be one of the options for a lot of our authors to use to meet that policy. But we'll be using experts or our peer system to really know what has been published, what has already been made available, and the different layers of open access that we have available. And if our faculty, or if it's in our campus, it will be not just faculty, but staff as well, our university authors have met that policy through one of our layers of open access publishing.
Yes, and it's kind of the same thing with us too. So we don't have a mandate at our university, but we are working on policies. There's a whole team of librarians behind that right now. And the same thing, we have University Senate, of course, they are the body that looks at it and makes recommendations as well, but it is under the purview of the provost. And our vice provost for research, always the same here, has the same outlook on things as well. So for us, same thing, digital commons is a great resource for it. Of course, the Pure system is definitely a great place to even, recognize it and showcase it too. But, especially with the White House memo coming out, right, in 2025, we're really getting our ducks in a row. We're working with our Office of Research and Sponsored Programs too, as well with them, with open data and all of that. So we're in the same thing, the same boat. We're trying to get all the policies together and just get something out there that the university can go forth and say, this is the actual university policy, not just what the library has as their policy for it.
Thank you, Annie and Karen. So we're ready for audience questions. Happy to take those.
I have one question. You both mentioned that you don't use Pure for full text right now, but it does have that capability, right? You can upload full text to Pure.
There is a game that
Yes.
So I was wondering would that potentially become a platform, let's say if we went all open access for STEM fields like the OSDP memo says, would that be a consideration at either your campuses, or does that just make it too complicated?
If you can clone me, yes, I would say absolutely. I would love that. No, it would definitely have to be, I think we have to get the human capital in there to help out with that. But it would be a great platform to be able to showcase it, definitely. Awesome.
Yeah. So I can't tell you what we would absolutely do with that. And this is one of the things that we definitely grapple with, and some of it is some of the staffing models that I described about how we have, even within my one department in the library, we have 2 different sets of people dedicated to 2 different sets of tools. With our institutional repository, we've done lots more work in our contracting and processes of setting up that, we know that stuff's in there for the long haul. We haven't done that work with our Pure implementation to know that for certain, so that would certainly be work that would need to happen before we would ever say, okay, never mind, we're going to just use Pure. And I think this might jump into one of our next questions, so but we'd also discussed some of the challenges that we have with both systems. And one of the challenges we have is staff. That's always, no matter what library problem we're talking about, that's going to be the answer. But the other thing that we sometimes feel on the two system question is, and again, this is some of it is because of my having different people administering, so you might not have some of the same issue, that we don't have a great definition from Pure and from Digital Commons themselves about where the distinctions are of the 2 separate tools. And so the librarians who work on my team will go to institutional repository conferences or meet regularly with our Digital Commons staff, have an understanding of it can do all of these things. And then I work more closely with Bushra and our group who works with our research information management system. And there is a lot of overlap. And so I think one of the things that we are also seeking back from Elsevier on this is, is to help us clarify those differences and really if our institutions, and we are a unique duo and they have both these tools, like we need a little help distinguishing or at least explaining, like we can't have some of your people telling half of my team to use this tool, and some of your people telling half of my team to use this tool. So, so that is one of the things that we feel is in our challenges of this current setup.
I just want to add, I also think like with our faculty too, you know, if you're telling them, okay, well, you have digital commons, right? You can possibly put your information in there. Here's Pure, and then you can put your information in there, create a scholarly profile in digital commons, create one on Pure, create one for the university. It becomes an issue. So I think before anything really does happen, we have to just be able to prove the value and say, okay, focus on this. You know, get your information in there and let's make sure that we can harvest it right over into whichever platform that we have to. The profiles are always a little bit of an issue. I work some stuff out with our marketing communications folks at the university, which is really nice, where that when I can go into people's profiles that they create and I have the ability to at least say, explore research at, Montclair State University Digital Commons, explore my research at Research with Montclair, and it'll link out to both systems at that point. But I still have to do the back end work of, because I help them out with their profiles on Digital Commons, and I get them started, and of course, as I said before, Pure, I do the profiles, so it's a lot of back work with it. But I think, just being able to somehow have a workflow, and that's something I've been trying to explore with the user study, what's the best way to do this and get them on board, keeping them on board, the faculty.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Hi, Delonin from Kroger Foundation. I was wondering, you mentioned that your self-submission systems are challenging, and I wanted to just ask in particular what parts of it your faculty finds the most challenging.
Sure, I'm going to repeat the question just so we have it for the recording so everybody can hear it. But the question was, what is it about the self-submission that the faculty are finding most challenging? And I would say, in my case, it's doing it. It's not that it's difficult. It's that it's motivation. And in our case, with these two particular systems, it is not. There's nothing required about it. And so we are also at Syracuse implementing another system, a faculty activity reporting system, and working very hard to try to get the data to move not just between these two systems, but eventually all three systems. And the only sort of because that will be tied to annual activity reporting and getting your raise, like that is the thing. And we see that we just, we've done this now with institutional repositories, and we implemented a research information system, and with no stick for we've not been able to get people to do it, even if it's the best user interface ever. It's the motivation issue.
I think the same thing with us, it's not that it's difficult for them to do it, I think it's a time issue. And when I did my qualitative study of this, it was time. I don't have time for this. I have students, I'm trying to do research, how do I even get this out there? But when you do have a little bit of a mediated deposit and you start a workflow for them, it kind of brings them at least the interest there, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna get back to that. Sometimes they don't, and you end up doing some more of the work for them to really get them interested. But I think once they see their download counts and their metrics, and they can use that, especially if they're up for tenure faculty, that makes it more important. They're very enthusiastic about using it, and they have no problems with going in there and uploading their information. It's the little bit later career researchers that we have the bigger issue with, with it, also with the time, so, yeah.
I'm actually going to backtrack just a second. Say the one other thing that I think we see as a difficulty for people to actually do it is, I mentioned it earlier that we are a smaller STEM institution than other ones. So we have a huge number of humanities scholars, social science scholars, professional dual scholars, that when they go into any of these systems and they see journal, book, conference proceeding, it's very easy for them to say, oh, this isn't for me, and walk away from it. And so, even no matter how many instructions we give them about, you can put this information in this field, or they don't recognize the output as their scholarly output, and are very happy to just dismiss it as opposed to take the next step and work with us on it.
Just a comment, just to say that it seems that doing it, getting faculty to do it is an international problem. Because I'm from Jamaica, University of West Indies, the Mona campus in Jamaica. And we have that problem with our youth scholar platform as well. They're not doing. But if you tell them that, like, guess what? Your university administrators will be checking it when you're going up for passing merit or to get tenure or professorship, that's when they will do it.
Well, I'm glad to hear it is not just in New York. Thank you.
Yeah, I did a little review a few years ago on that, institutional repositories and motivational habits, and yeah, there's hundreds of papers out there about user motivation and why faculty do not buy into their institutional repository. And I have to say, one really interesting thing, I have a professor who is going up for full professorship, and he actually reached out to me the other day, and he's like, "Oh, you know, here's my metrics off your repository," and I'm like, yes, yes, I can, absolutely. And I put all his papers up there for him, that's okay. But, I'm always happy to hear that, and I just also uploaded a paper for a professor who did a white paper on pumpkin spice. I mean, and it's scholarly in nature. I mean, it wasn't in a journal, but he loves it. He's in communication studies, so he's, had it in articles around the country, and he's like, I have this permanent URL, and I'm like, spread the word, spread the word. He's like, I do. So I think it helps when we have the little use case scenarios for people, and then it gets them excited about it, and then they'll tell other folks, other professors, and then you're like, okay, yeah, this is great. But to get them to keep doing it, that's my biggest problem, is just continue the process. Not just put a few papers up, forget about it for a few years, and then you're like, oh my God, they're publishing, they're not up there yet again, That's a difficulty for us.
I have one question. It's a great presentation. I think it's very insightful. My question is, do all your faculty members have ORCID IDs or no?
I wish.
No, ours do not all have ORCID IDs. Syracuse University is an ORCID institutional member, so we can make them for them. We have not quite gotten there yet, but we have a few other systems on campus that are also beginning to require ORCIDs, and so we're
Because
getting there.
because now some journals are going to require
Yes.
ORCID IDs.
Yes, and so in the fields where journals are requiring them for submission and other applications are requiring them for submission, people have them. In the fields, they don't.
Yeah, because I was thinking if there is any way their profiles are auto-populated. So if their ORCID ID or some database have linked, automatically their articles will be uploaded on their system.
Yeah, we're not an institutional member either for ORCID, but I know that our liaisons push it in time when they meet with faculty. They try to help them create it right then and there when they're working with them. I believe that the Pure system, you can upload their ORCID ID into it, but since we're not an institutional member, it's not automatically populating for us, unfortunately. Digital Commons also, I believe, on their profiles, you can put their ORCID ID number, which I for faculty as well.
Okay, so the Pure, we have author profiles for 17 million authors in Scopus. So those populate automatically in the Pure, which can save a lot of time. You can do exactly the same thing with your author profile for ORCID. So you can take your 100 publications in your Scopus profile, and you hit a link, and you can essentially load all of those into ORCID in one go. So it is, if you happen to have Scopus at your institution, it's a nice way to become ORCID compliant if that becomes a university.
And I know in our, and so the gentleman who asked the question before you, my friend Jay, I'm going to tell you that the person on our campus who knows the most about this is your co-presenter tomorrow, Emily.
I was thinking about
And so this is one of my colleagues who's been working closely with getting experts working with the faculty information system that we're in the process of uploading. And she's done a fantastic job of sort of taking all of our systems of data and being able to map how all this data can flow between them, and then taking it to all of our IT staff and begging for help on how to make this happen. And so that is something we're very much
She
attuned
did a
to.
fantastic presentation last time on insights and all the
Yeah.
metrics.
I know, she's really good at understanding all of
I
this stuff, so I lean on her heavily to tell me like where the data is actually flowing and where it's not, and where it could be, but that is something that if you're at an institution where you have sort of some of these tools or multiples of these tools, like really digging into where the data is moving between them and who's responsible for moving the data and who needs to do something to move that data has helped us like tenfold just understand the life cycle of all of these tools. So I'm gonna speak on her behalf, but I'm sure she'd be happy to share with anybody, and then you can kind of put in your own pieces of it. But it really helped many of us grasp. Doing the mapping has really helped many of us grasp how this works.
I have a question, and it's really about the workflow. So if you have an open access policy or when you implement it, is there like, because Karen brought up the challenge of, you can go to different places and that's really confusing. So is there a plan, like from Elsevier or for Syracuse, to direct scholars to one place, start in Pure, and then it's gonna link you to digital commons for the actual deposit, so, or vice versa, or?
I can say for us, so because, our license is limited with Pure, because of state collaboration, it's only STEM and STEM related, we always direct our faculty first and foremost to the institutional repository. That's really, when we say, go there first, and upload your information into the repository part first, and then we can always harvest it over and create a profile easily. As far as the Pure system, there's no plan yet in place, but eventually there will be one. I mean, I do have to come up with one, because I can't sustain the workflow on my own going forward, doing all of it. We do have our open access policies and everything else happening. But yeah, institutional repository first, Pure is second.
Yeah, and that is sort of the exact workflow that we're in the process of devising right now, like how do you comply with our open access policy, but kind of where we're at right now in the visioning process of this is that the faculty information system is going to be the system in which you declare how you have complied. And so complying being either published open access, you can also get a waiver, but that's all going to take place at that step and go through the different systems.
That's in a folio on your campus.
You need to ask Emily.
Okay.
What, and
That's
so
okay.
I can't remember which one
Okay,
I'm using right now.
interesting.
There's more of these calls than I have.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's just very confusing for faculty. And
It's
so,
very confusing for me.
trying to make those, any of the benefit of two products from the same organization, and,
Yes.
that closer knitting that workflow would be a real benefit.
Yeah, and we're also in a sort of challenge of that system will not roll out to faculty across campus at the same time. And so we're actually still devising like workflows. Because currently the only system of record of what gets published is a piece of paper that gets turned into the provost's office. And so at the same time as we're sort of devising like our ideal system where we have all of the things talking to each other correctly, we still have to be like working in the back. The reality that most of our campus for a number of years will be turning in their annual work like this. And so we're also doing that workflow at the same time.
Any other questions?
I have one more question, last question. Is your system also include the PhD students? If the research comes out from them, or it's only faculty?
Yeah, our institutional repository, yes, we have dissertations in there, any kind of research that do with faculty, if we want to showcase Pure, no. Pure is
Only
specifically
faculty.
faculty, tenure track, tenured, and administrator/faculty.
We have a similar breakdown in Pure is just faculty with a few select staff members and office research in the libraries. And then our digital commons, we do have dissertation theses, and we have students do not have to deposit in our institutional repository, but the last round of statistics I saw just a few weeks ago was that we were at a 98% open access selection rate for our dissertations and theses. So our graduate students certainly see the value in putting their names out there.
It's very important for them.
Yes, and the reason that we do have a very sort of defined workflow that we've been working with the graduate school for years over dissertations and theses, and so we're not relying on self-submission in that case, and we know that's the better strategy.
Same thing for us, exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, work with graduate school and they're all vetted, you know, with their faculty advisor and with the graduate school, and then they go up there. So the students don't self-archive. But they are getting a lot of downloads. I have to say, I remember even like it's really interesting to see how some of our theses are some of our top downloads. It's amazing.
Yeah.
This might be a little bit of an oddball question. Is this all funded out of the library, or is it shared at Syracuse? Is it shared with Provost Office in the library?
So the bill for Pure is
Yes.
split between the Office of Research and the libraries. The institutional repository is entirely paid out of the libraries,
Okay, so for
including all the staff.
how hard is that to coordinate? Because, I mean, my previous job, we would sometimes have things that was shared between the library and Provost. I feel like every year something like this would come up. There would have to be re-education or reminding people what's.
Well, I'm
So
going to
like
point
who's
you towards
forgetting?
another one of my colleagues who's here at this conference right now, our acquisitions librarian who's here, her name is Jen Zaccaro, and she can get everybody to pay their bills. And so, we actually, I know from just joking with her about this, like we pay it and then we make them reimburse
Okay.
us because of some of those issues, but we have, we just sent an email from the previous year of like, as a reminder, you're committed through 2025 to split this bill, and here it is. But she gets everybody to pay us back.
And for us, we're a state institution, so if you ever work for a state institution, there's a budget call at the state, there's a lot of layers you have to go through. Our institutional repository is paid through the library. We also ask the provost for certain things. And the other Pure system is the state collaborative, so that's under the purview of the vice provost of research. So that is, the library is just me as the human capital for it. But yeah, state budgets are very complex. So you have to have everything set in place. And I think one good thing is that, it seems to be the same type of budget every year for us. So, we keep, projecting forward and projecting forward. So we're not, always going all these different, add-ons and this and that. So it's been a pretty smooth process to keep it that way for us. But going forward, we may be looking at the provost to kind of maybe pitch a little bit more. He's listening, sorry.
I know it's slightly over time now, but thank you all for attending our session. I'd like to thank Andy and Karen for the time as well, and for sharing with us what you're doing at your institutions, and hope you have great rest of the audience. Thank you.